Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For this video, I would like to discuss Transformers, specifically Generations Selects. For people who do not know, Generations Selects is a toy line that offers exclusive redecos of pre-existing figures, with their offerings consisting of obscure characters and obscure variants of pre-existing characters. While the subline began with two Power of the Primes redecos, Ricochet and Red Swoop, it officially launched alongside the War for Cybertron trilogy. The first two chapters, Siege and Earthrise, have been completed, and the trilogy is moving on to its final chapter, Kingdom, with Selects following suit. So far, there have been two Selects figures released for Kingdom, Transmutate, and Generation 2 Ramjet, and judging by how many Selects figures that Earthrise received, we can assume that Kingdom will receive just as many, if not perhaps even more. So, for this video, I would like to share my top 10 ideas for Transformers Generations Selects figures. However, before I begin the list, there are a few rules that I would like to establish. Firstly, in order to fit with the general theme of Selects, my ideas will be limited to redecos and minor retools of pre-existing figures, so no new molds will be suggested. Secondly, since the War for Cybertron Selects have only consisted of redecos of figures released within the trilogy itself, I will also be limiting myself to that pattern as well. Finally, I will not be suggesting redecos for figures above Leader class. So far, Leader class is the highest size class to have been offered by Selects, with Galactic Man Shockwave and Shattered Glass Optimus Prime, even though the size difference between them and Voyager class figures is very minimal. Since Commander class and Titan class figures may be too large and expensive to include in a niche collector targeted subline, I have decided against including redeco ideas for them on this list. Although I did originally consider a redeco of Siege Omega Supreme as an Omega Sentinel, a redeco of Earthrise Scorponok as Black Zarak, and a redeco of Kingdom Rodimus Prime as Black Rodimus Convoy. Now, with the rules established, let's begin the video. For number 10, my first idea is more Generation 2 and Shattered Glass themed redecos. During Earthrise, Selects paid homage to both of these continuities, with the release of Sandstorm, a previously cancelled Generation 2 character, a new version of Generation 2 Megatron, and new versions of Shattered Glass Optimus Prime and Ratchet, which have been some of my favorite Selects releases so far. Of course, the recent reveal of Generation 2 Ramjet indicates that more of these redecos may be released during Kingdom, which I honestly hope happens, since there are plenty of ideas available. Beginning with Generation 2. My first idea is new versions of Heroes Optimus Prime and Megatron, or Sure Shot and Archforce, as they were known in the UK. Archforce could be a redeco of Earthrise Megatron, while Sure Shot could be a retool of Siege/Kingdom Ultra Magnus. Since Sandstorm was previously released, I think that Blackout and the other two cancelled Seekers could also be released, as redecos of the Earthrise Starscream and Ramjet molds respectively. While there are unfortunately no available molds to be redecoed into Dreadwing, I think that Kingdom Core class Starscream could be redecoed into Smokescreen. In terms of characters that Generation 2 introduced, I think that Siege Mirage and Spinister could be redecoed into Leadfoot and Power Dive, respectively. Finally, I think that Earthrise Starscream and Hubcap could be redecoed into their Generation 2 color schemes, along with Siege Mirage and Sideswipe being redecoed into their cancelled Generation 2 variants. Moving on to Shattered Glass, my ideas for this theme will unfortunately be much more limited, since many of my first ideas were of molds released in Studio Series 86, such as Hot Rod and Jazz. However, I was able to come up with some more ideas. First of all, I think that Shattered Glass versions of Megatron, Starscream, and Soundwave would be obvious candidates, as redecos of either their Earthrise or Kingdom versions. Since Cyclonus was actually released as part of Kingdom, rather than Studio Series 86, I think that he could also be redecoed into his Shattered Glass colors, along with Siege Sideswipe and Earthrise Thundercracker being redecoed into their Shattered Glass colors as well. Since Shattered Glass Ratchet has already been released, I think that he could also be redecoed into Shattered Glass Ironhide as well. Finally, while this idea is much more obscure, I think that Optimus Primal and Beast Megatron could also be redecoed into their short-lived Shattered Glass colors as well. For number 9, I have chosen another 4-pack of cassettes, namely Buzzsaw, Enemy, Gargoyle, and Howlback. One of the earliest Earthrise Selects releases was the Soundwave Spy Patrol 3rd unit, which consisted of Frenzy, one of the most well-known cassettes, Knock and Scar, to coincide with the release of Earthrise Double Dealer, and Wing Thing, one of the more obscure cassettes. While I still think that this was a fantastic Selects release, it unfortunately feels fairly disjointed, since it consists of one well-known character and 3 obscure characters, which also carries over to my idea for another cassette 4-pack. I think that a better idea would have been to either replace Wing Thing with Buzzsaw or replace Frenzy with Enemy, in order to make the sets more even. Anyway, let's actually discuss the ideas that I had for a second cassette 4-pack. Buzzsaw is, of course, among them, since he is the last of the original cassettes that needs to be included in the War for Cybertron trilogy, with him being a yellow redeco of Laserbeak. Ironically, Enemy was actually previously included with previous versions of Wing Thing, with both the Encore and Masterpiece versions of Sound Blaster. Concerning his design, he would just be a red and blue redeco of Rumble/Frenzy. Finally, Gargoyle and Howlback would be redecos of Laserbeak and Ravage, in their micro-change color schemes, completing the roster of obscure cassettes. Mostly. For number 8, fitting with the Beast Wars theme of Kingdom, I have chosen Predacon Rhinox and Brigadoon, Black Arachnia. For those of you who are unaware, these were temporary color changes that these characters underwent in different episodes of the Beast Wars cartoon. Rhinox's color change occurred in the episode Dark Designs, in which he was temporarily reprogrammed into a Predacon, while Black Arachnia's color change occurred in the episode The Trigger, Part 2, in which she took control of the Brigadoon, a flying island that had been created by the VOC. It is honestly a surprise that no figures of these forms have been released yet, since they would be very easy redecos to create. Rhinox would simply need to be recolored purple and silver, while Black Arachnia's redeco would be even easier, with all of her yellow coloring, except for on her pincers, being switched out for silver. Of course, Black Arachnia has already received a Kingdom figure, and Rhinox seems highly likely to be receiving one as well, judging by the line's promotional art, which may open the possibility of these one-off appearances being represented in toy form. For number 7, I have chosen some of the remaining Diaclone-inspired characters, namely Road Rage, Clampdown, and Delta Magnus. During Earthrise, Selects included quite a few new figures of characters inspired by unused Diaclone color schemes, including Exhaust, Tiger Track, Cordon and Spinout, and Deep Cover, although the latter seems to frequently switch between Earthrise and Kingdom. I think that these are excellent alternatives to spending hundreds of pounds for masterpiece figures of characters who do not even exist. So I think that it would be nice to see some of the rest of the Diaclone-inspired characters appear in Selects as well. Of course, with Clampdown, that would complete the trifecta of Siege Sideswipe redecos, though he would be a redeco of Red Alert, who I think looks nice in a police-themed deco. However, one minor problem with this idea is that some fans may confuse him with the Robots in Disguise Decepticon. Judging by promotional art, it seems likely that Trax will be appearing in Kingdom, so I think that he could be redecoed into Road Rage as well, which could also double as Shattered Glass Trax. However, even if there is not a Trax figure for Road Rage to be a redeco of, then she could just be a retool of Earthrise Run Amok. Finally, Delta Magnus could be a redeco of either the Siege or Kingdom versions of Ultra Magnus, though I think that the Kingdom version would be more likely. Unlike the Masterpiece figure, this would include the Blue Optimus Prime, which could double as Magna Convoy, in reference to the E-Hobby and Generations Selects online manga. Out of these three ideas, I think that the least likely is Road Rage, since Kingdom Tracks has not been officially confirmed yet, despite it seeming very likely. Meanwhile, Clampdown and Delta Magnus seem highly likely, since they already have molds to be redecoed from. For number 6, I have chosen Packrat, once again fitting with the Beast Wars theme of Kingdom. Packrat was first released as a BotCon 1997 exclusive, as a blue redeco of Rattrap, alongside Fractal, a green redeco of Pterosaur. Speaking of Fractal, I would have included him in this spot as well, but Pterosaur has not yet been confirmed for Kingdom in any form. On the other hand, Rattrap was one of the first figures to be released in Kingdom, which suggests that he could be redecoed into Packrat for selects, since his original figure had a sparkly outer coating, in order to reflect the events of his accompanying BotCon story Ground Zero. I think that this could be a nice detail to homage with a potential selects release. However, considering all of the rampant quality control issues with the War for Cybertron trilogy, it may be best for this detail to be skipped. For number 5, I have chosen Galvatron 2. Of course, Kingdom Galvatron has recently been revealed, in the purple color scheme of his film and cartoon appearance. For those of you who are unaware, his original figure actually had an inverted color scheme, based upon his early design for the film. However, the Marvel Comics would use this design for two different versions of Galvatron, with the second known as Galvatron 2, from a universe where he and Unicron succeeded in destroying Cybertron and conquering Earth. This Galvatron was much more insane and powerful than his predecessor, and a version of him would even be included in the Japanese Legends and Unite Warriors manga, in order to explain the continuity error of Megatron and Galvatron existing at the same time. Since time travel seems to be a core theme for Kingdom, as foreshadowed by Galvatron's appearance in the Netflix show, I think that Galvatron 2 would be an excellent choice for Kingdom's selects range. Judging by leaked photographs of Kingdom Galvatron, he seems to be either Voyager or Leader class sized, so I think that he will be eligible for selects. This would also be an extremely easy redeco to create, since the figure's color scheme would just need to be inverted. As a homage to his manga appearances, he could also come with the Creation Matrix, which could be redecoed from Earthrise Optimus Prime's Matrix. Overall, I think that Galvatron 2 would be an excellent selects figure, since he is a cult favorite character. He would be an easy redeco to create, and he would fit in perfectly with the theme of Kingdom. For number 4, we have two ideas that I am quite surprised have not been made yet: Hauler and Artfire. From the moment that Earthrise Grapple was first revealed, I was sure that it would be one of the most redecoed and retooled molds of the line, though hopefully not to the extent of Siege Megatron. With the recent release of Kingdom Inferno though, it does seem as though the mold may be able to receive some redecos, namely Hauler and Artfire. I have already covered both of these characters in my 20+ obscure Transformers characters, but to quickly summarize, Hauler was the precursor to Grapple, before becoming an ex-Constructicon, while Artfire is an obscure Target Master. Between these two characters, Artfire may be more likely, since Hauler's only figure so far has been his original figure, while Artfire has even received a Masterpiece figure, and his fellow Target Master, Ricochet, was even included in the Power of the Primes period of selects. Despite that, both of these characters would be fairly easy redecos to create, as they would just be redecos of Earthrise Grapple and Kingdom Inferno, respectively. Concerning Artfire, I also think that it would be a nice homage to include a redeco of Siege Frack as his Target Master partner, Nightstick. For number 3, I have chosen Bumper, who is fairly similar to Hauler, in the sense that he was an unplanned character who still managed to become a part of the franchise. However, unlike Hauler, Bumper has not yet received an official Transformers figure, if you do not consider his limited, unintentional release during Generation 1 as official. Despite that, there has been a hint of Bumper potentially receiving a new figure in the future, since the recent buzzworthy Bumblebee figure transforms into his alternate mode of a Kiraku Mazda Familiar, rather than Bumblebee's traditional alternate mode of a Volkswagen Beetle. If Bumper were to be released in Generations Selects, then he could be a retool of buzzworthy Bumblebee, since it already has the correct colors, scale, and alternate mode, and would mostly just require a retooled head and some additional black paint. However, even if this mold is not used, due to it technically not being part of the War for Cybertron trilogy, then Bumper could easily just be a redeco and retool of Earthrise Cliff Jumper. This mold has already been redecoed and retooled into Bugbite, Hubcap, and even Bumblebee himself, so I think that it may be fit for at least one more redeco. While Bumper is probably more obscure than Hauler, I feel that he may be more likely to appear in Selects, due to his frequent appearances in the rebooted IDW continuity and his influence on another figure. For number 2, we have yet another idea that I am quite surprised has not been made yet. Sunstorm. The Siege Starscream mold could potentially rival the original Classics version with the amount of redecos that it has received, including Red Wing, Hotlink, and most recently, one of the sparklers from the Netflix show. So, with several obscure seekers already made, it is honestly bizarre that Sunstorm is not among them, since he was actually the first generic seeker to become an actual character, and one that I really believe needs some more representation. I cannot help but find it ironic that Red Wing has already been made, when he owes his entire existence to the Sunstorm fiasco that I mentioned during his segment of 20 plus obscure Transformers characters. If Sunstorm were to receive a Selects figure, then I think that he would use either the Siege or Earthrise Starscream molds, since I do not think that the smaller Kingdom mold would suit him. While the Earthrise mold would give Sunstorm his more recognizable design, I would honestly prefer it if he used the Siege mold, since I find it to be an overall better and much more unique design. Besides, it would basically be an upgraded Nova Storm, since the Rainmaker's colors schemes are honestly very dull and bland. However, I can understand why some people may prefer for the Earthrise mold to be used instead, since it has not been redecoed nearly to the extent of the Siege version. Now, before I reveal my number 1 idea, I would like to cover a few honorable mentions that I think would still make for great Selects releases, but were just eclipsed by my other ideas. Shadow Panther was really considered for the list, since he would fit very well with the Beast Wars theme of Kingdom and would be an easy redeco of Cheetor. However, he was beaten out by another Cheetor-related idea that I will mention later. Due to his recent return in the Generations Selects special comic, Lorbhammer was also considered for the list, as it would only make sense to complete the roster of Seeken redecos. However, rather than a redeco of a War for Cybertron figure, Lorbhammer's template, Lobclaw, is a retool of Power of the Prime's Blot. Despite that, he would still be an excellent choice for Selects. One idea that I almost included in the main list was GoBot's redecos, specifically Dreads, Smallfoot, and Road Ranger. However, due to not every member having an available mold and possible legal issues, despite the release of Bugbite, I decided to hold this idea back for an honorable mention. As I had mentioned in my previous Transformers video, Megaplex is a character that I would really like to see revisited, and I think that he would make a lot of sense for Selects. If he were to be based on his original Machine Wars figure, then I think that he would be a redeco of Kingdom Starscream. However, the reason why Megaplex is only an honorable mention is because I much prefer his Timeline's design, which unfortunately does not match any pre-existing molds within the War for Cybertron trilogy. Since Ultra Magnus and Nemesis Prime are fairly overdone concepts for Optimus Prime redecos, I think that Selects could provide some variety by releasing new versions of other, more obscure characters, such as Jinrai, Toxitron, and Magna Convoy. While I think that Jinrai and Magna Convoy would work better as redecos of the Siege Optimus mold, I think that Toxitron would work better as a redeco of the Earthrise mold. Even though I mentioned Magna Convoy during the segment on Delta Magnus, I think that a Siege Optimus redeco could be a nice alternative for him, in case Delta Magnus is never made. Since Hotshot has proven that updates to Unicron Trilogy characters are possible, I think that another easy contender would be Universe Ramjet, since he is a fairly interesting yet obscure character. Despite possible confusion between him and Generation 1 Ramjet, I think that he would work very well within selects as a redeco of Siege Starscream, since I think that the Tetrajet mold better suits the more pronounced Jet Kibble of Ramjet. Despite Generation 1 Grimlock being released as part of Studio Series 886, I still think that Beast Wars Grimlock could be a nice addition to selects, since his original figure was a redeco of Dinobot, who has recently received a new figure as part of Kingdom. In addition to his interesting design, it would also be nice to finally receive a version of Beast Wars Grimlock that does not suffer from gold plastic syndrome. Even though there is, unfortunately, no War for Cybertron mold of Blitzwing to be redecoed into Fever Dream, his fellow Platinum Edition redeco, Star Dasher, does have a chance of possibly being included in selects, due to the release of Siege Astro Train. One idea that I was originally contemplating, but now see as fairly unlikely, was Beast Wars' second Galvatron. Since Kingdom focuses on the Beast era, I think that it would be a nice idea to homage some characters from its Japanese spin-offs. Since Galvatron was one of my favorite characters from the spin-offs, as well as the Beast era as a whole, I would honestly really like to see him be revisited in the future in some form. Unfortunately, there are not many suitable options for Galvatron to be retooled from. At first, I thought that he could be a retool of Earthrise Double Dealer, since they share similarly proportioned robot and alternate modes, with Double Dealer's Falcon and Missile Truck modes being retooled into Galvatron's Dragon and Drill Tank modes. However, due to the poor reception of Earthrise Double Dealer and the lack of suitable molds, Galvatron seems fairly unlikely to be revisited, hence why Lio Convoy is not listed. However, one Japanese Beast Wars character that I could see being revived for selects is Guile Dart, since he shares a similar design to Kingdom Raptor Knight. Despite never being portrayed as a weaponizer, I think that Guile Dart would work excellently as a redeco of Raptor Knight, since it would give him more representation and finally eliminate Raptor Knight's status as the only redeco-less weaponizer. The final honorable mention that I have is Slipstream. Some of you may be surprised that I have not put her, or many other non-Generation 1 characters, on the list. However, I feel that, if non-Generation 1 characters were to appear in Generation 1 themed toy lines, then they would be more deserving of new molds. Despite that, I think that Slipstream would make for a unique redeco of any of the 3 Starscream molds from the War for Cybertron trilogy. Now that all of the honorable mentions have been covered, let's finally move on to number 1. And finally, number 1, the character that I would like to see in Generations selects the most is Predacon Ravage. Since Beast Wars is currently being celebrated with Kingdom, I think that it would be an excellent idea to homage one of the show's most famous guest stars. In the show's 3-part Season 2 finale, The Agenda, it was revealed that, after the Great War, Ravage was actually rebuilt into a humanoid Predacon. At first, he was tasked with arresting Beast Wars Megatron, but later sided with him after learning that he was following the original Megatron's plan to alter history. Originally, I considered Ravage for a potential video, discussing ideas for Kingdom itself. However, I saved him for this Selects video because I feel that there are several Beast Wars characters who are more deserving of a spot in the main Kingdom line. Concerning Ravage within Selects, I think that he could be a redeco and retool of Kingdom Cheetor, since several of his past figures have been redecos of previous Cheetor figures. Specifically, I think that the designers could use his Beast Wars Metals figure as inspiration, which involves giving him his correct head and a Jaguar Beast mode. Due to his status as a memorable guest appearance in a show that is currently being celebrated, I think that Predacon Ravage is the character most deserving of an appearance in Generations Selects. Thank you for watching this video. This was definitely much shorter than my previous video. After spending so long on 255 Nights at Freddy's facts, I decided that I needed to unwind a little and discuss something much smaller. Ultimately, I decided to discuss something Transformers related, in order to take a slight break from Five Nights at Freddy's, eventually deciding to discuss Generations Selects, since I had a lot of ideas to share for what I think will be released during Kingdom. I may even consider doing videos like this for other lines, like Masterpiece and Studio Series. However, my next video will be back to Five Nights at Freddy's, with a ranking of the Five Nights at Freddy's teasers, so stay tuned for that if you are interested. With that being said, that will be all for this video. Please like the video if you enjoyed. Feel free to share discussions in the comments section, and please subscribe to my channel if you would like to stay up to date with my newest uploads. Thank you for watching.